Unpopular opinions. Today, I'm absolutely honored to be joined by Mike's book review, who's a big inspiration of mine, and we can't wait to get into your unpopular opinions. Now, as always, we have signs that says agree or disagree. So whenever I read an opinion out, we'll share our signs and then we'll have a discussion. But first, Mike, do you have an unpopular opinion you want to share with us?
Oh, I think everyone knows what it is at this point. I feel like if I picked anything else, people would be disappointed. I think that Name of the Wind is a fine book. There's lots of things I like about it, but when everybody talks about it, it's like some generational book, and it's like the best book since Tolkien. I struggle with that just a little bit, and it's got me some heat now and then. But I feel like I talked about it recently, and I gave people enough stuff that I talked about things I liked as long as the things that I didn't like. But it's still a very unpopular opinion, I think, if you have anything less than like S tier 5 stars for this book.
Yeah, that's definitely an unpopular opinion. And I often also get a lot of backlash because I haven't even read it. But that's only because it's unfinished. It's not because I don't want to.
Right.
But I will get to it one day, and I'm expecting to love it. But
I'm sure you will. You like Robin Hobb. I think you'll be fine.
I love Robin Hobb. You can see my shelf up here. So we will just jump straight into the first unpopular opinion. And this one is going to be an interesting one. Malazan is not nearly as difficult as people say. It just takes a little more thinking than an average story.
Maybe if you're way smarter than I am. A little more thinking than the average story, I would disagree, definitely, for sure. I feel like you have to have at least a PhD to understand the series on your first reading. I mean, I was doing my first reread of this series on my first read because I'd read a paragraph and be like, what? And I just go back and read it again. So I would definitely disagree. I think you definitely have to be on a much different, higher plane of thinking. We're talking like the Philip Chases and the A.P. Canavan's in the world. That's what the only two guys I know that think it's the greatest of all time because they understand it. I think. But I think it is a wonderful series. It requires more than just a little extra thought, I believe.
No, I absolutely agree. Yeah, and they both have PhDs, don't they?
Yeah.
Man, yeah. So obviously you have more life experience than I, and you still struggle. So I definitely find that quite interesting. But yeah, I made 4 videos about Malazan. I wanted to love this series, but it was just too much brain power. And just to say, it just takes a little more thinking than an average story is.
I started in January of 21. And I'm on book 8 right now. So all I would say to people is take your time and take breaks. That's all I'll say. Because the Malazan fans will tell you, they want you to go through it because they're afraid you're not going to remember anything. You ain't understanding anything anyway, so might as well go ahead and take a break, right?
First Law is better than Game of Thrones.
Man, gosh, that's tough. That's like my 2 favorites. I mean,
oh man, that's why I chose this one. Okay, I'll go first because, again, I actually haven't read all of them. I've only read the first Game of Thrones. Again, only because it's unfinished, and I picked that Game of Thrones up when I wasn't used to epic fantasy, so I know I will one day pick up Game of Thrones, and I will absolutely love it. But for now, I read way more First Law books, so
I have to say disagree because, I love the First Law, but what is my only complaint about A Song of Ice and Fire? My only complaint, it's not finished. I mean, it's like... I know this for some people, that's a smoking gun. That's the reason, hey, you've got your answer why it's not better because, First Law at this point, we don't know if it's actually done, but, it seems like it might be. I don't know. Look, I adore the First Law universe. I talk about it ad nauseum to the point where people are like, okay, stop talking about it. We get it at this point. I think the only other series I talk about as much as that is Red Rising. That's just because I want to get more people to read it. Well, same with First Law. I still feel like there hasn't been enough people who've read it where everybody started reading, Song of Ice and Fire after the show blew up. But that's just 5 perfectly written fantasy books, man. I've got 0 problems with anything. His world building is next level. His history is unbelievable. I would put him right there with Tolkien as far as someone who's built up their history and stuff. Yeah. You get some of that in First Law, but not quite on the same level. And I'm pretty sure that Joe would probably laugh at this question himself because I know he himself is a big Song of Ice and Fire fan. So, no, it is not better, but it's just still, that is like in the top 3 here. That's 2 of my top 3 fantasy series of all time right there. And that's really, really tough.
Yeah. I think Joe probably will also have laughed at this for sure. And Game of Thrones is definitely a bit more epic in scale than First Law.
Yeah.
So, excellent. Moving on.
Less pants shooting in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on, I had to include a Stephen King opinion. So King's classics are overhyped, but still pretty good, and his new stuff is underhyped. this is a bit hard for me because I actually haven't read a lot of his newer stuff. But I must say that the King classics are not overhyped in my opinion.
No.
I mean, okay, he sold millions, but I love all of them I read have been incredible.
I think that people have this misconception that everything he's wrote since like 1995 has been bad. I don't think so. If you're talking about new stuff like in the last decade, it's been hit or miss. He'll still come out with a fastball once in a while and be like, wow, I can't believe he can still write like that. But no, his classics are just that. They're classics for a reason. You might feel like they're overhyped because they've made like 1,500 movies and things like that. And everybody will always talk about, oh my God, you haven't read Pet Sematary, you know, things like that. That's going to happen a lot. But no, again, that's what someone's saying, like, oh, well, you know, you like Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton the best because it's his most popular book. Well, it's his most popular book for a reason. And I think these Stephen King books are called classics because that's what they are. That isn't a detriment calling something a classic, I don't think so. No, definitely not overhyped. But I do think his new stuff is a tad bit underhyped, but it's understandable. It's not going to land with everybody. Whereas that old stuff, I feel like you're going to find something for everyone.
A lot of classic science fiction and fantasy is overrated compared to modern science fiction and fantasy. Character writing is much better now.
Man, I'm just seeming like a sourpuss today here. No, agree. So you agree? Okay.
Okay, I'm a bit like. So this is more a personal preference for me. I enjoy the modern stuff more, but that is not necessarily to say that the old stuff is bad and overhyped or overrated in my opinion. But yeah, for personally, I usually find that a lot of modern fantasy books have at least a better understanding of mental health when it comes to character writing, which I really appreciate. But yeah, you've definitely read more classic science fiction and fantasy than I, so I'll be interested in hearing your opinion about this one.
I mean, I think this one's just really going to be subjective to the reader because, I mean, I feel like if you're that type of reader where you're like, I need to have someone I can relate to enjoy the story, yeah, I think modern's probably going to be more a lot of classic is going to deal with, you know, regular hero's journey archetypes, things like that. And I think it's really, you know, good guy, bad guy, where now you have, you know, morally gray and things like that are going to be a little more to people's taste, but definitely not overrated. I wouldn't say character writing is better now. There are some that I think are really, really great. Like I feel like you can, for example, Joe Abercrombie, you can just read the dialogue and you know, boom, that's his characters, you know, because he's so good at doing things like that. But I think there are some that think they're really great and they're really, really not. So that might be an unpopular opinion in itself right there. But no,
I didn't drop any names here.
no, but I mean, like you look at some of the classic stuff, like people will look at like Robert E. Howard and like, yeah, he writes a story in 15 pages. And I'm like, but he puts more in that 15 pages than a lot of modern fantasy does in 300 pages because he gets to the point. I feel like a lot of writers these days are just flexing their muscle. Like, look how beautiful of a writer I am. Look how great my prose is. And I'm like, yeah, I'd rather have that with the characters interacting with each other or something like that. So I think that a lot of the focus on characters has kind of disappeared recently because they're so interested in building their lore, building their world, showing how good of a writer they are. And I feel like characters kind of taking a step back on some of these things. So maybe it's just me. Maybe I haven't read the right stuff. I feel like I'm doing a good mix of both. I definitely will say that it's not. I understand why people would think that because it is very cut and dry. It is very, you know, morally white versus morally black and things like that. But no, definitely not.
Yeah, let's move on.
See if I can agree with one on this.
Yeah, you're not going to agree with this one. Winter's Heart is top 5 Wheel of Time books. It has one of the most powerful and satisfying endings of all time. He's just shaking his head already. Okay, let me just start. I think it has a very powerful and satisfying ending, and it has huge repercussions for the world. The sign is just like in the screen. But overall, the only good thing about that book really is the ending. So yeah.
Winter's Heart to me is Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, where you forget about the last 95% of what you just went through because you like the lightsaber fight at the end. Even the ending that everybody thinks is so amazing, I'm like, for me, what tore that ending apart for me, and this is going to be somewhat out of context, so if you haven't read this far, it's not going to ruin anything for you. I felt like it completely confirmed that the Forsaken were complete idiots. I mean, they were like slipping on the banana heel bad in that, and that's all I could see. I couldn't take anything that was going on, the serious part. I could not take it seriously because I was like, what a bunch of... Did they drive a clown car here? I was like, my God, how ridiculous. And that just kind of totally ruined that for me. But again, the first 95% of that book. I put it on a bottom 5 Wheel of Time books.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the ending was great, but also one thing that annoys me so much about the ending is that right after we get Crossroads of Twilight, which is one of the worst fantasy books I've ever read. I mean, I love Wheel of Time, but that book is so bad, and it never acknowledges what happened at the ending of book 9. So it's not until book 11 that we actually hear the repercussions of what happened in book 9. It's just, it's painful.
Yeah, it made me think of the days back, and I'm gonna show how old I am here. We did watch like the X-Files. They had this episode where like there's this huge revelation about aliens or something, and then the next episode for like 3 weeks, it's like Monster of the Week. Like, you guys even gonna like Scully got kidnapped by aliens? You're not even gonna talk about it? That's kind of how I feel about Crossroads of Twilight. Yeah.
But which is the worst Wheel of Time book, Path of Daggers or Crossroads of Twilight?
I still say Path of Daggers because it just...
Really?
Yes. I was like, Crossroads was boring. I was like, Path of Daggers, like, you're really going to spend 400 pages talking about going to war before you're like, hey, I guess we're going to war now. So I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's because my expectations for Crossroads were so low. Because, you know, you read the first 9 Wheel of Time books with every single person pounding into your head, Crossroads of Twilight's terrible. So I got there and I was expecting it to be bad. And I was like, it's fine. You know, it's kind of what I expected because of what you guys told me. No one warned me about 8 or 9, you know? So
really?
That's why I have such negative opinions on those books, I think.
Empire of the Vampire sucked. It was way too edgy.
Can I put both? It's like, I don't think it sucked except Vampire Ways, but I do think it was edgy. But I think it was like edgy in like a berserk way, you know, where it's like you got like this super edgelord, but it's still like something that you just want to keep following their journey. I don't know. I think I would do like this, you know.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So I do think that it was super over the top and edgy in places. But I also think that's a lot of people who already had that preconceived notion about J. Kristoff because of Nevernight, because of the way Nevernight was. And I felt like that kind of bled over into this. Because a lot of the complaints I heard about it, I was like, are you sure you're not talking about Nevernight? Because none of that stuff happened in the Empire of the Vampire. I like the book, but I 100% understand why there's some people who are like, no. But again, the same stuff happens in Berserk and everyone loves it. So I don't know.
No, I'm also very much in the middle. I do think there are some passages that are so ridiculously edgy. They're just like, it almost took me out of the book, out of the story, because it was just so over the top. I also thought that it was refreshing to read a modern book that had scary vampires. And I know you talked about this as well. There's no glitching vampires in this book.
Well, I mean, they are still sexy. And I was like, I've always said I miss when vampires were scary, not sexy. I'm like, look, vampires can be sexy, but they also still want to treat you as food, you know? And I feel like that we had gotten away from that. It was always like, hey, I want, you know, to date some teenage girl. And I was like, what vampire that's 200 years old or more is going to want to date a teenage girl? I mean, I didn't want to date teenage girls when I was a teenager, you know? So
Like, even now, like, I'm 27. I don't want to date a teenager.
Right.
Imagine if you're like 200 years old. It makes no sense.
That's a little creepy. Yeah.
The Green Bone Saga is solid, particularly as an author's early work, but it's intensely overhyped.
All right, y'all gonna hate me. I enjoy Green Bone a lot. I really like that trilogy. You can still love something and agree. Yeah, it's probably a little too overhyped, a little too overrated, I think. When I see this put up with like Lord of the Rings is like one of the best trilogies, let's pump the brake a little bit. But I did really enjoy the story. I really did. I didn't like Jade Legacy as much as everyone else, just because of the narrative that she chose to do in that book. I felt like it, again, that's my problem I said with character. I felt like you took something away from the characters by not showing me what happened all those years. But I did really like the series a lot. But I mean, people act like Jade Legacy could cure cancer, and I'm like, really? Really? Okay.
I'm definitely at fault. Jade Legacy is one of my favorite conclusions to a trilogy ever. And the Green Bone Saga is probably in my top 3 trilogies. But I do agree that book 2 for the past 2 years has maybe slightly overhyped it a bit.
And guys, it made one of my top 10 trilogies ever. It did. So I understand. I did really like it. But I mean, again, this isn't like the cure for everything. I don't know.
The cure. Man. But the narrative in Jade Legacy worked personally very well for me. I thought it was very ambitious and I found it very satisfying. But it definitely is quite different from book 1 and 2.
I like that universe so much. I just wish she'd wrote 5 books instead of doing that with the 3rd book. Is what I don't know, because I felt like, it was asking you to care about these characters who, oh wait, they were 5 years old last chapter. Now they're in their 20s, and I'm like, I haven't gotten connected to the character. Why am I supposed to care about what happens to them next? Because they were kids.
Yeah.
That's what bothered me about it.
Not sure how unpopular this is, but if you enjoy Realm of the Elderlings, you can't complain about Wheel of Time being slow. Oh, probably. Yeah, we both agree on one.
On multiple ways. Is I said you cannot complain about the slog in Wheel of Time, but then not complain about the Rainwild Chronicles and Realm of the Elderlings. Now, I am enjoying Realm of the Elderlings. I enjoyed Wheel of Time. But when people act like it's above criticism, that's like, what? I felt like I got that same thing where when I started reading Wheel of Time, you might have got this. When I started reading Wheel of Time, I got, great series, one of the best ever. But books 7 through 10 are really, really tough to get through.
Yeah.
So the same people are like that with Rainwilds. But once you get there, they're like very overprotective of it, and they don't like it when you criticize it. So I think I've had that experience with both of them. Yeah, I would think it would make no sense to me for you to say Wheel of Time is slow if you like Robin Hobb books, which are the very definition of slow burn fantasy.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. They're beautiful. And I think Robert George is a very beautiful writer as well.
Yeah.
So if you just like spending time with those characters, but that's like when people say they love Wheel of Time and they love Song of Ice and Fire, but they didn't like Dune. I'm like, okay, sure.
Well, I'm worried now because next up for me are the Rainwild Chronicles, and if you didn't enjoy them, then I'm a bit scared now.
I liked book 3. Book 3 was pretty good. But...
Okay, I mean, at least they're relatively short.
Yeah. Yes.
So I can speed through them if they're bad, but hopefully I won't.
I think I just love live shit so much. It set the bar so high, so everything's just been on sliding downward for me. But I still love the series.
Yeah, no, that is the best trilogy I read. I read the first 3 trilogies in the series, and Live Ship is definitely the strongest. So
no doubt.
By far, it's incredible. But the thing you mentioned now that people say the first books are good, but then books 7 to 8 or 9 are not that good. But then if you get through it, it's good. But actually, it's way worse when people say the first 3 or 4 books are bad, but then it gets really good. At least the Wheel of Time and stuff like that. They start good, and then it goes down, and then goes back up again.
About with Malazan fans, we're like, the series is good, but it doesn't get great until book 6. I'm like, 6? It's like, it's not like you're telling me just tough through that first season of that show. You're telling me to read 5 tomes before it clicks. Now, I can confirm book 6 of Malazan was great, and it's still my favorite in the series so far. But that's asking a lot of people. So I agree. I would rather it be in the middle of your series, like it is with Wheel of Time and Realm of the Elderlings, than at the beginning.
Man, I hear that all the time about the Dresden Files as well, which I haven't started yet. People say book 1 to 3 aren't that great, but at book 4 it becomes really, really good.
Here's the thing with that is I feel like the first time you're reading it, you're not going to feel like that. In hindsight, you'll be like, oh God, those books weren't even scratching the surface. But I feel like in your first read, you'll be fine.
That is a very interesting. Yeah, that's really good to hear. Then maybe I will pick it up one day. Fantasy romance gets looked down upon a bit too much in the fantasy community. Ooh.
I mean, we dunk on it quite a bit, I think. But here's the thing: is I tell people all the time is keep on laughing about it, and Sarah J. Maas is going to keep cashing those checks. She's got Taylor Swift level fandom, compared. She probably outsells all of our favorite fantasy authors, except maybe Brandon Sanderson. So there's definitely a group for it. But it's just like how Nickelback's got a huge fandom, and everybody swears they don't buy their albums. So someone's buying them. Somebody's buying this fantasy romance. There's a reason that community is so massive. But we definitely do treat it bad. I'm real big about, hey, don't trash it without actually reading it. That's why I tried reading a couple Lee Bardugo books, and what a shock they weren't for me. But I knew that going in. But we're
very surprising that a man in your age wouldn't love Lee Bardugo.
And it's really, really shocking, right? Yeah. So I went into that as an experiment, just to say, before I trash something, I want to read it myself and say, I have a foot to stand on here, because everyone trashed Twilight. No one read it. They're just trashing it. And I'm like, give it a shot. And I read 2 of those Twilight books, and I want to kill myself. But I understood going into it. That wasn't written for me. I'm fine with that.
I think a reason why we often look down upon it, if you should call it that, is because it falls down under the same umbrella as fantasy. But if we meet someone that says they're a huge fantasy fan, but they only read Sarah J. Maas, then we're like, we don't read fantasy for the same reasons.
Yeah, it's like saying you're a huge sci-fi nerd, but you've never seen Star Wars. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I think a lot of times, a lot of this romance fantasy or fantasy romance, whatever you want to call it, has just been smuts, but in a fantasy universe. And it's just like,
absolutely. Yeah.
All right, but if you're someone like me, you just can't stand love triangles and stuff. I mean, the world's ending and you're more concerned about choosing between two cute boys. I mean, yeah, obviously that's not written for me. That's not written for me. So of course I'm going to look down on it, but who cares what I think? You know, if you like it, hey, go for it.
Oh man, I have to ask you now that you brought up love triangles, what is worse, insta-love or love triangles in fantasy?
I would say while I despise both, I would say a really good writer can make me believe in insta-love, because I think love at first sight can exist. Love triangles I hate because, like I said, the world is about to end and you're really concerned about, hey, we might all be dead tomorrow, but I've got this real problem in my hands choosing between these two people. Hate it. Yeah. Hate it so much. Hate it.
Yeah. No, I think maybe I hate love triangles a bit more, but it's just because it reminds me a lot of like angsty romance. I hate stuff like that.
Yeah, I hate you've got the one main character who every single person they meet is just automatically in love with them. The Rey Skywalker thing. It's like, really? Yeah. She's doing nothing impressive. Why? She's not being endearing to any of these people around her. Why do they love her immediately? So yeah, I got like this Sookie Stackhouse. That I tried reading those books, and that's what it was like. Everyone that met Sookie was in love with her, and I was like, yeah, out. I'll just keep watching the HBO show. Yeah.
Wolves of the Calla could have been a novella. Oh, okay. It's somewhere in the middle for me because I think Wolves of the Calla was a very enjoyable book.
Because I didn't feel like there was anything in it that could have been cut. I just feel like
I felt it was a bit too slow in parts.
When you ask your viewer or your readers to wait 7-8 years between book 3 and 4, and then you get book 4, and the entire book's a flashback. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you get to book 5 and you're still not headed for the tower. That's frustrating. You know, like I said, again, as a waiter, for binge readers, I don't think it might not have been as bad, but for people who were waiting between the series, very frustrating. Our characters are still like not heading for that goal. We're running out of time here. And I felt like it kind of felt like a side quest. Now, look, a lot of important stuff happened there, but I don't think it could have been cut down to novella length. I mean, I guess for King and novella length, it's like 350 pages, so maybe. But no, I would say Song of Susanna should have been a short story. How about that?
I actually really enjoyed Song of Susanna, which I know it's an unpopular opinion.
Philip will never get on the same page with this one.
But yeah, Wolf of the Calla, I really enjoyed that book. But yeah, I did binge read The Dark Tower. I literally read them back to back all the way through. So I didn't have to wait many years. So definitely a bit fortunate.
That probably helped. I mean, it's really cool getting to actually see, gunslinging finally, because you talked about gunslinging for 4 books now, and now you actually really get to see it. So it's really cool.
Brandon Sanderson should have written The Final Empire as a standalone. I definitely disagree on this one. I mean, I love The Final Empire, and while I do agree that book 2 and 3 are very different, and yeah, The Final Empire, it kind of reads like standalone. I think like it's just, I love the whole trilogy. I'm so glad he didn't stop there because just brilliant.
I think what I like about Final Empire was kind of one of the subversions that didn't make me feel like you were treating me like an idiot. You expect the Lord Ruler to be like this big thing. And you realize that isn't the big bad of the Mistborn trilogy. I think that was actually something that was really cool about it. So to me, it didn't read like a standalone because I still wanted so much stuff to be solved. I didn't realize until recently that book 2 and 3 are kind of looked down upon. I had no idea. I thought everyone was like me and they all read this as like one story. So I had no idea that the sequels were kind of maligned like I've seen recently. Now, Era 2, I might agree with you on that, but the original Mistborn trilogy, no, I think all 3 of them are really great.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they pick up The Final Empire, they think that the story we're introduced to in the first 200 pages, that is going to be the story for the whole trilogy.
Right.
But that is like not the case at all. Like the story kind of wraps up in the first book, and then we get introduced to a kind of new story in book 2. But speaking of Era 2, have you even finished Era 2?
I read 3 of them. I haven't read Lost Metal. I got it, but I haven't read it. Don't know if
Do you have any plans to?
I mean, I didn't enjoy 2. I really didn't like 3, and I was like, I'm just going to admit it's not for me. Because as well as I do on these booktube streets, if you're too critical on Mr. Sanderson, you're going to get the business a little bit. It was just like one of those things where I was like, look, I know people enjoy it. It's just Era 2 is just not clicking for me at all. Like in Era 2, all I was caring about was like the legacy characters from the original. And it was like, it's like the Star Wars sequels. And like the only time I'm caring is when the old character's on the screen.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something wrong with your new character. So I just didn't find Wax interesting at all.
No, they're definitely a step down in quality. I actually read Alley of Law, and then it's called Shadow of Self. Yeah, and I didn't enjoy them at all. And then I waited 4 months, and then I picked Alley of Law up again and started from the beginning. And on my second read, I definitely enjoyed it more. But still, it's nowhere near Mistborn Era 1. Right. And it's almost a bit unfortunate that they're both like called Mistborn. Because, yeah, Mistborn Era 1 is...
No, the original trilogy is great. I also put that up there as one of my favorite trilogies, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike, for joining us for a discussion about unpopular opinions. This has been so much fun. And yeah, I look forward to reading Name of the Wind one day and let you know if I actually hate it as much as you do.
Oh, my pleasure. I hope I didn't raise anybody's blood pressure too much with my hot takes, but and everyone has them, and no one agrees with them. That's why they're hot takes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video and got some inspiration to read more books. Now, if you want to support me in any way, then you can check out my Patreon. I have different tiers and you will get different benefits depending on what tier you support. Some of the benefits include getting your name in my videos, voting rights on my next feed, getting a special role on my Discord server, getting access to one Patreon exclusive video a month, or even art cards and bookmarks signed by my wife and me. Most of the money goes to hiring an editor to do a couple of videos for me a month, which basically allows me to post high quality content more frequently. But yeah, thank you so much for watching and God bless.